Welcome to the next video on the series of control chart videos. In our previous video, we saw about individual moving range chart, which is used for continuous data, but the data is collected one after the other individually. In this video, we will understand about X bar R chart. And this chart is again used for continuous data, also called as variable data. But this time the data is collected in the form of subgroup. So what is subgroup data collection? How this chart is useful? We'll see all these things in this video. To start with, X bar R chart is drawn for continuous data, and the data should be collected in the form of subgroups, and your subgroup size should be 8 or less than 8. So what do we mean by that? Let's understand this from this particular data. So here for every hour, I am collecting 5 samples of a machining process, and I am measuring the dimension of the machined component. So what you see here, N1, N2, N3, N4 and N5, these are 5 samples collected every hour, and similarly I have collected samples for every hour. I have collected 5 samples. So this is what we call it as collecting samples in the form of subgroup. Here the definition of my subgroup is every hour, and my subgroup size n is equal to 5. So this is what we mean by collecting samples in the form of subgroup. So when we collect samples in the form of subgroup, and when my subgroup size is 8 or less than 8, I need to draw X bar R chart. So that is a chart that I need to draw. X bar R chart is a chart that I need to draw. And if my subgroup size is greater than 8, then I will go for X bar S, which we will understand in the next video. So in the X bar R chart, let's understand first how to draw this X bar R chart in the Excel file. Then we will understand how to draw this X bar R chart in the Minitab. So as you see here, every hour I have picked up 5 data points, and similarly I have collected this for 20 hours. So the first thing that I need to do is to calculate subgroup average. So what do we mean by subgroup average? Subgroup average is nothing but average of these 5 data points, because these are 5 data points collected on the first hour. And similarly, I can copy paste this formula so that I get subgroup averages for all my individual subgroups. That is step number 1. Step number 2, I need to calculate subgroup range. What do I mean by subgroup range? I need to find out the maximum value of this 5 data points, and I need to subtract the minimum value from this 5 data points, and thereby I will get the subgroup range. So what you see here, 600.36, 600.36 is the average of this 5 data point. 3.60 is the difference between the maximum value of this particular set of data points, which is 601.6, and minimum value, which is 598. That difference is 3.60. Again, I copy and paste this formula so that I get the subgroup range. So the first step is to calculate subgroup average. The second step is to calculate subgroup range. So this is called X bar because this is average of subgroup. Now what I have to calculate as my third step is I need to calculate my X double bar. What do we mean by X double bar? This is X bar. So if I calculate an average of individual X bars, I call it X double bar. So what do? I use the formula again, average. I select all these data points. So this is my X double bar. So this is going to be the center line of my X bar R chart. Hence I refer this value and copy this value till the last cell in my table. Similarly, X bar is going to be the center line of my X bar chart. So sorry, R bar, column U, R bar is going to be the center line of my R bar chart. So R bar is nothing but average of range. So I use the average formula, and then I select all the data points in my range column. So I get the R bar. So this value I am going to refer till the. So now we got the center line for our X bar chart. We got the center line for our R bar chart. We got the individual values for our X bar chart. We got the individual values for our R bar chart. Now it is time for us to calculate the control limits. So first we will calculate the control limit for the X bar chart. The control limit for X bar chart upper control limit is, the formula is x double bar plus a2 times of r bar. So what does it mean? This is my x double bar plus, I open bracket, this is my r bar, I use the multiplication symbol, then I select a2 value from my control charts constant table for n is equal to 5. My sample here, my subgroup size n is 5. So n is 5 and I want the a2 value. So here is the a2 value. So now I close the bracket. So this is x double bar plus a2 times of r bar, right? So that will become my upper control limit for my x bar chart. So I say is equal to, select the same value and refer till the last cell. And for my lower control limit, exactly the same formula. Instead of plus, I'm going to use minus. So here my lower control limit will be minus. So x double bar minus a2 times of r bar, and I select this value and I refer this value and then I take it till the last cell. So now we got the individual values, center line, upper control limit and lower control limit for my x bar chart. Similarly, we have the individual values and center line for my r bar chart, that is r chart. Now we will calculate the upper and lower control limits for my r chart. And the formula for upper and lower control limits for my r chart, the upper control limit formula is d4 times of my r bar. I have my r bar here. So d4 times of my r bar. What do we mean by that? The d4 value, here we have n is equal to 5 and here we have the d4 column, which is 2.114 from the control charts constants table. So d4 times of r bar, and so I'm going to refer this value till the last cell, and my lower control limit will be r bar multiplied by d3 times of my, so here is my n is equal to 5, d3 is 0. So I refer this value, I copy and paste this value till the end. So what we have done is we have individually data point collected in the form of subgroup. I have even given the step-by-step instruction of how to draw this. So people who would like to get a copy of this Excel file can email to us. I will give the email address in the description of this video. So you can write to us and you can get a copy of this Excel file. So it will become easy for you to perform the same calculations and also teach to your team members. So the first step of drawing X bar R chart is to collect the data in the form of subgroup, calculate subgroup average, calculate subgroup range, calculate X double bar, which is nothing but average of all the subgroup averages, calculate R bar, which is nothing but average of subgroup ranges. And once you have done this, the control limit, the upper and lower control limit for X bar is nothing but X double bar plus A2 times of R bar, X double bar minus A2 times of R bar. Similarly, the control limits for R bar chart would be, the upper control limit will be D4 times of R bar and the lower control limit will be D3 times of R bar. Now if I want to draw the X bar chart, I select the X bar individual values. I hold the control, but just a minute. I select the X bar individual values. I select X double bar. I select upper control limit for X bar chart. I select lower control limit for X bar chart. Then I can click on insert and here I can select a line chart. So this is the line chart that I can select and I can rename this, just a minute. I can rename this chart as my X bar chart. X bar is nothing but subgroup average. The word X bar refers to subgroup average and the word R refers to subgroup range. So how do we draw our range chart? This is the individual values of my range chart. Let me select this. This is the individual values of my range chart. This is my R bar value. This is the upper control limit for my R chart, and this is the lower control limit for my R chart. Now again I can click on insert, I can click on graph, and I can draw this particular graph, which will be my R chart. Let me move this chart here. This will be my R chart. So I can rename this as my R chart. Okay, so how we interpret this chart? The interpretation of the chart is, this is the average of the first 5 data points, and this is the range of the first 5 data points. When average is dropping, for example, in this case, the average is going below your control limit. What is the meaning? The meaning is there is a process shift. The process is significantly changing because there is a huge difference in the average, and with that average there is a very small range. What does it mean? That means more or less all the data points have shifted together. It is not because of 1 or 2 data points in that subgroup, the entire subgroup. If this average would have dropped, if the average would have dropped but the range chart would have spiked up, then that gives a different meaning. The meaning is within the subgroup there is one data point which is behaving differently. That is the meaning. Whereas on the 8th data point, if you see, the average is significantly dropping, but the range is also significantly dropping. What does it mean? That means the average of that subgroup has shifted in the sense it has moved significantly away from the X double bar, but that movement has happened with very little variation within the subgroup, which is actually a bigger cause of concern for me because the entire subgroup has shifted. So I need to do a investigation on this case. Need to do a investigation on this case. So that is why we will look at the X bar and R chart together. So that's very important for us to look at the X bar and R chart together, so that it gives us an understanding of how is the variation in the process, how is the central tendency changing, and how is the range also changing within the subgroup. Now we will see how to draw the same chart in Minitab. In Minitab, I have collected the data in the same way, N1, N2, N3, N4, N5. I have also put this data in a different order. For example, in this case, the first 5 data points are together, then the next 5 data points are together. So the data can be in the form of subgroup, or even if the data is in one single column, Minitab have the capability of understanding it and then plotting the X bar R chart for our convenience. So first let's see how to draw this particular type of data where the data is collected in the form of subgroup. Then we will see how to draw it if the data is together one below the other. So let me click on stats, let me click on control charts, and in control charts, control chart for subgroup. As I told at the beginning of the video, control chart for subgroup, there are 2 types of charts that we can draw. One is R, another one is S. X bar R chart is when your subgroup size is 8 or less than 8, and X bar S chart is when your subgroup size goes beyond 8. So I select my X bar R chart. So there are 2 options here. Option number 1 says all observations of a chart are in one column, and option number 2 says observations of subgroup are in one row of column. So one row of column, if I select that particular option, observation of subgroups are in one row of column, then that means my subgroup data is in one row. N1, N2, N3 is for the first hour. Then again in the next row, you have it for the next hour. So in this case, how I need to select my data? I need to select my N1, N2, N3, N4 and N5. As I told before in my previous video where I was explaining IMR, individual moving range chart. Similarly, here also I can go to the X bar R text options, and here I can select all the tests and see what are all the different statistical abnormalities that this data is going through. Not only data point going beyond control limit, which is the first test, data point going beyond your upper and lower control limits, but you can also see various other statistical tests that the Minitab as a statistical application is capable of doing. Like you have 9 data points on the same side of the center line, or 6 data points all in increasing or decreasing direction, 14 data points alternating above and below, 2 plus 1, 3 data points. There is 2 data points out of 3 data points greater than 2 standard deviation. 4 data points out of 5 data points greater than 1 standard deviation. 15 data points in a row within 1 standard deviation, or 8 data points in a row greater than 1 standard deviation. So these are all different statistical abnormalities that Minitab will test your data for and give you a result. So now I click OK, and then I click OK. I get the same X bar R chart that was performed in Excel. Now the same chart is being performed in your Minitab. Now let's copy this data and take it to the Excel file and compare the charts. You'll find the same data being done in the Minitab. So Minitab gives us more opportunity to identify defects, or not defects exactly, but statistical abnormalities. Because in a normal control chart drawn in Excel, we only look at data point outside the control limit. But here it gives you test number 6 has failed, text number 5 has failed, text number 6 has failed. So these are early warning systems in your control chart, which helps us to identify statistical abnormalities even before it comes as a negative feedback from the customer, even before the output goes beyond customer expectation. Before that, we will be able to get these red flags, and based on that, we will be able to take some actions. Now let me get back to Minitab. So the same chart that you have seen here, if your data is not in this order but collected one below the other, still you can draw the control chart. So stats, control charts for subgroup, X bar R chart. This time I'm going to select my data, or all my observations are in one column, and I need to select my data, which is length. Now Minitab will ask you what is your subgroup size. So here my subgroup size is 5. So once I enter my subgroup size is 5, my X bar or test options will still be selected. Once I enter my subgroup size 5, Minitab have the capability to consider every 5 data points as a subgroup. And once we click OK, the same chart again get constructed, but this time the chart is in a different, or the data is in a different orientation. And again, it gives you the results where things have gone beyond your statistic, what kind of test is failing, all these kind of summary also you will be able to get in your Minitab. So friends, let me summarize. This is the second control chart that we have seen in the series of control chart videos. Data type continuous, also called as variable data. Sample is collected in the form of subgroup. What do we mean by subgroup? We need to logically decide a particular frequency as our subgroup. In our example, we have taken every hour as a subgroup, and in every hour we pick up 5 samples, so that becomes my subgroup size. So I collect my sample in the form of subgroup. My subgroup size is 5. If my subgroup size is 8 or less than 8, I can go for X bar R chart. If it is greater than 8, I need to go for X bar S chart. So from that perspective, we are going for the X bar R chart. So we have seen how that X bar R chart need to be constructed in Excel file. We have also seen how it can be drawn in Minitab. Within Minitab, what are the 2 different ways in which you can have data, and based on that, how you need to construct the X bar R chart in Minitab. That was also explained. And along with that, we have also seen what are the different tests that Minitab performs and how the test results need to be interpreted in Minitab. So these are the things we have seen as part of this video. I hope this video was useful. It will be helpful for you to understand how to construct this control chart in Excel file. Thanks for your time. Thanks for watching this video. For more videos on control charts, Minitab tools and techniques, and quality management videos, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.